Undead or unluck, which power would you rather have? Hey everyone, welcome to Princess of Gay. I'm your host Connie, and today we are here with my blind reaction to episode 2 of Undead Unluck. For those who don't know, we did a first impression to this back in October. And I decided, yeah, we're definitely gonna react to more of this. And just have not gotten back to it until now. This season, at least, I don't know if there's plans for another season at all, but the season at least is still ongoing. It is in its second core currently. Um, and I'm just very interested to see how this continues. Not only did we react to the first episode back in October, but we also did a separate reaction to the opening. Something I don't typically do. But I wanted to do the opening reaction for that because the opening song is played during the end of the first episode, and I recognized that it was Avu-chan singing, the lead singer of Queen Bee. And, you know, I just had to see the opening because of that. And I've seen the opening many times now. I've heard the song many times now because I am a pretty big fan of Queen Bee. I mean, I don't like know all of their songs or anything, but I like everything I've heard pretty much. So yeah. Anyway, uh, so yeah, in the first episode we met our two main characters, Fuko and Andy. Andy is the titular undead of the duo, I guess you could say. He is a man who has been alive, I think he said over 100 years or something like that. Um, and his ability prevents him from dying. And it seems to not only prevent him from dying naturally, but he can't be killed either. Like, if he's even decapitated, his head will reattach. It's like actual immortality, like full immortality. Because you see immortality presented in anime and video games and movies, comic books, all the time, and you always kind of have to ask, is it um is it immortality as in you just don't naturally die but can still be killed? Is it immortality in that you cannot be killed but you will still age and die? Or is it true immortality, which is, both of those? You cannot be killed by anyone, no matter even if you're, again, decapitated or whatnot. Or you also don't age. You're like aging is halted. I guess in some ways kind of like a more powerful vampire. Because vampires can only be killed in certain ways in most mythology. Like, you have to have, like, very specific tools or utilize very specific things to be able to kill them. Otherwise, they can just, heal. And they don't age, typically, either. Vampires are typically immortal in the fact that they just don't age. So it's kind of like that, just more powerful because, like, to the best of our knowledge, from what we can see, there is nothing that can kill him. Andy is immortal in, like, the purest sense. In, like, nothing can even kill him. Because he just reforms. I guess his immortality, in that case, would be... I was going to say kind of like Deadpool. Because Deadpool can reform from practically anything. But I think Deadpool still ages. But I'm not actually 100% about that. Because I don't think that's actually gone through in the movies. The live action movies that are now part of the MCU. I don't think that's actually gone into. It's just that he, will regrow any body part that's like chopped off or blasted off or anything like that. And I know in the comics he can like reconstitute from pretty much nothing. He can literally reform his body from a puddle of blood. um I actually don't know if he stops aging. Maybe it's more akin to Wolverine. Because Wolverine, I know, stops aging. But I don't know exactly how powerful his healing factor is comparative to Deadpool's. Like, can he heal from practically anything too? Maybe you could say it's a combination between the two. It's Wolverine and Deadpool, the best of both worlds. Hey, we're getting that movie later this year, so it works out. But yeah, I really think that's an interesting factor, especially because he wants to die. Andy wants to die. And he's enlisting Fuko's help to do so. Because Fuko's ability is Unluck. And it's basically, she's just a walking bad luck charm. She's Crow from Ruby. Basically, if she touches you, then it will give you bad luck. And the length of time she touches you, as well as the way she touches you, determines how bad of luck you get. Like, if it's like just like a finger poke or a boop or something like that, it's not going to be that bad. But if she gives you like a full-on hug or something like that, or a kiss even, like, it's going to be big. Like we saw in the first episode, she kissed Andy, and that brought upon her unluck, which brought a fucking meteor down to Earth. That's insane. And it was kind of like brought up the idea of like, okay, so what if they fucked? Like, genuinely asking, what the hell would happen in that case? Like, you already got meteors coming down from a kiss on the cheek. It wasn't even a kiss on the lips. So a kiss on the lips would already be bigger than that. What the hell would sex do? Honestly, I kind of feel this series might actually go into that. I honestly, with the kind of like vibes this series gives off, I think it's David Production, right? I think it's David Production, which makes a lot of sense because pretty much anything from them is like pretty wacky. You have Fire Force, you have Cells at Work, you have obviously JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. It's like that's kind of their wheelhouse. Shows that are pretty wacky. And so far, based on the first episode, this is pretty wacky. Now, there's other characters that are shown in the opening and everything as well. And some of them have to have powers too, right? It can't just be Andy and Fuko. So what other powers would there be? And do all the powers start with un? Like, could someone's power just be unhinged? Like, what would that be? There's all kinds of, like, I guess, ideas you could go with there. Like, give someone the power of unbelief. If they just stop believing in something, it just ceases to Jesus, that would be... I just realized as I was saying that would be so broken. They just choose to not believe in something and it just ceases to exist. Like, Jesus, that would be broken. But I think one of the biggest appeals based on the first episode for me was the characters' personalities. Andy is rambunctious and wild because he can be, because of his undead ability. Because he's immortal, he doesn't really have anything to fear. And when you actually stop to think about it, it's pretty sad and tragic. Like, you see him as like this kind of goofball, like high energy, crazy guy. But when you think about it, it's like this guy's been alive for hundreds of years, maybe, without aging, without being able to die, seeing everyone around him grow old and die without him. It's like, dude's probably been driven to a bit of insanity from that. Like, let's be honest here. And then Fuko, her ability is also very tragic with, the shit that happened with her parents. It's just, she has to avoid touching people. It's kind of like Rogue. I might have made that comparison in the first episode reaction, but it's kind of like Rogue from the X-Men. Because Rogue can't touch people with skin-to-skin contact. If she does, she will, if they have a power, she'll absorb their power, but also she'll absorb their life force. If she has too much prolonged physical contact with someone, it could kill them very easily. And there was nothing they could really do to stop it, honestly. It's an insanely powerful ability. And yeah, Fuko's, while her power isn't quite the same as that, it definitely has a similar vibe to it. So, yeah. I'm really interested to see what they do with that continuing forward. Also, Fuko is just fucking adorable. I just want to put that out. Honestly, Andy kind of is too. They're both kind of adorable. I don't know what it is, but it's like, for some reason, I just really like them. They have this like charisma that makes them stand out. It's probably the reason why I actually remember their names. Because I have a hard time with that. Even sometimes I have a hard time remembering names from an episode of something I just watched. But, I remember Andy and Fuko, and I haven't watched this since October. Like, I think I might have watched a reaction or two that someone might have put up, but that would still have been in October. So, yeah, it's wild that I can remember their names and as much info as I can. Because there was this group, even at the end, they were kind of like kidnapping Fuko, I believe. And Andy had to come save the day, and that's when she kissed him on the cheek, and that's what brought down the meteor and caused them to be able to escape. But the organization or whatever is still, like, after them and all. It was a big setup moment, I guess you could say. And a lot of the episode otherwise was just kind of introducing our characters and their backstories and just learning about their abilities. So, yeah. I think overall, I'm just very excited to see where this goes. I'm happy to finally be getting back to it. Not as long as it could have been, but, still a good amount of time. And yeah, hopefully this series ends up just being really, really good. I'm excited for it. And just as a reminder, we will be getting back to Lucifer after this. And like once we're done with this series or take a break, whichever one we end up doing first, I guess, we'll go right back to Lucifer at that point. So no worries about that. I am excited to see more Lucifer. I just did want to break at the time, even though we ended up, dropping Hellbound anyway because of the direction it went. But I'm not going to get into that all here. Point is, I'm excited for more Undead Unluck. And yeah, we're going to see how this goes. And also, I almost forgot, this is not just, this isn't actually a first impression series. It is a donation reward series. Well, it was kind of both. Because Venom donated to have me do a first impression to episode 1 and kind of go from there. And so now it kind of converts over to just being a donation reward series. And that's why it's also in this slot. because as you know, this is a donation reward slot. So, yeah. Just wanted to bring that up as well. Give the credit where it's due and all. So, that being said, let's just get into this and hope for the best. So when the screen fades to black, pause this redirect and go to the description below. Follow the link to the reaction, and after you watch it, come back here to the redirect and resume play. Because after it fades to black and then fades back in, everything from that point forward will be my afterthoughts and will contain spoilers to the episode. So, that being said, thank you so much for tuning in, and I will see you at the reaction. And we are back, and we'll begin with spoilers in 3, 2, 1, now. So, we have been introduced to Union. Union is the organization that hunted them down in the first episode and is now continuing to do so in this one. We're introduced to 2 new members, one of whom has the ability to negate your ability to avoid. And so Andy refers to him as unavoid or unavoidable. I think it's unavoidable. And the other one we don't entirely know. It's kind of unclear, but his ability does require eye contact. We do know that for sure. Unavoidable is killed by Andy using literal finger guns. And the other one manages to kind of like gain interest in them. And that this idea is brought up of them joining Union to avoid being hunted down. And that's a very interesting idea. Because, yes, it will solve the problem of them being hunted by Union if they join them as part of their 10 negators. But I feel like this is not going to be like a end-all be-all solution. I don't feel like this is going to work out. But they were given the option of going to this lake. A negator working for the for Union is going to appear there, and they just have to be there when he does, and kill him. They do so. They have a second spot open, and they can both join. This episode also does touch on the entire thing about like, if they have sex, that would be like the ultimate sense of it would bring about the ultimate unluck, because it's the most intimate people can be with each other. But the episode also brings up the idea that her unluck is kind of connected to how much she likes the person she's touching as well. It seems to affect people that she likes more than people that she, for whatever reason, doesn't. She mentions, I believe it's her grandfather, who she said, like, she was always creeped out by his, like, dentures or whatnot. And because of that, the unluck that she gave to him wasn't as strong. Now, we don't actually know for sure if that's true. It's just kind of a theory at this point. So we'll have to see if that ends up remaining as part of her powers, abilities. Or restrictions, or whatever you want to say. It's, at this point, just kind of hard to tell if that's exactly correct. But we also see in this episode a lot more of Andy's character, which I expected we'd be getting little bits of that at a time, and it seems to be the case. We see that Andy actually got upset at the little stunt, you could say, Foucault pulled there. her offering to give up her virginity and, fuck him out of desperation kind of pissed him off. And what he basically said in response was that I'm not the kind of guy who would do that kind of thing to someone. I'm not going to take advantage of someone's desperation and sleep with them when they're in this kind of, you know, like messed up mental state. Let's put it that way. And so we see that, yeah, Andy's not a bad guy. He's just kind of gone a little crazy from, you know, a long time of being alive and all of that shit I talked about before with, like, seeing everyone around him grow old and die. It's like that'll fuck you up a bit. But we see that he does still have a sense of moral decency. And he wants Fuko to actually fall for him so that that when they have sex it feels, okay to do. Again, the idea of her just wanting to fuck him out of desperation rubbed him the wrong way. It actually upset him because he wouldn't want to do that to her. And we see throughout this episode that he is protective of her. And yes, partially for his own reasons, for his own desires. But I think that there's a lot more to him that he's hiding or has maybe even forgotten about. And just isn't quite realizing himself. I think he's actually a really stand-up, nice guy who genuinely does want to protect her, not out of his own desires, but because she's in danger. And I definitely want to see more of this kind of thing explored. Because I feel like that's going to be a big core emotional center to this series. Like exploring Andy and Fuko's, characters and backstories and how these powers have affected them. Like Fuko said, like she's never been able to experience physical romance because of her abilities. Again, it's like Rogue from the X-Men. And because of that, she's been lonely and depressed and in so much emotional pain. And I very much believe that her and Andy are going to get together. I believe that they're actually going to genuinely fall for each other. This episode pretty much guarantees it for me. And honestly, I believe, as weird as this sounds as a goal for the series, I believe that it's going to work up to the point where they have sex. Again, I know it sounds weird. It's like, oh, this is like a big flag point goal for these characters and their growth throughout the series. But if you think about it, it's actually like really emotionally resonant to do it that way. Especially for a character like Fuko, who, again, has not been able to experience that kind of thing. But also for Andy, who has clearly lost a lot of his connection to humanity through his growing insanity. I think that these two falling for each other is actually going to help both of them in ways that they're not expecting or ready for. And that's the kind of shit I want to see, And it's not even just about like it's not even just about them like fucking or whatnot. Like that's not even the point of it all. It's about what it means, what it would mean to both of them to have that kind of relationship, considering what their abilities are. Because, I mean, I talked about how Andy will, in his lifespan, have seen so many people around him, like, grow up and die. And it probably makes having a relationship very difficult. Because you end up having a partner, they're going to grow old and die while you stay the same, and you're going to have to live with them not being in the world anymore after a certain amount of time. Like, that's always been one of the big issues with immortality. And so the idea that they could have that kind of relationship would be probably really cathartic and nice for Andy and Fuko alike. Both of them being able to do something they haven't been able to do. It would probably really help them both out mentally and emotionally. And again, that's the kind of shit I want to see. It's not because of the sex thing. It's because of the what it means to their characters. Because as I've said before, characters and story are always the most important part of an anime to me, and various other media, of course, too. But that's always first, like before animation, before music, before voice acting. You have to have quality story and characters. Like if it's a gag anime like Asobi Asobase or Doctor Slump, those can kind of get away with having less focus on the story and characters and more on the comedy. But that's for kind of like that specific genre. Most anime, you need to have story and characters that will hook your viewers in, because that's how you get people to watch. And so, in order to do that, you have to have good story and good character work. And so far, I think this series does that. I'm very invested in the characters and their struggles and what their powers mean to them. And the story is fascinating as of now. And I guess we're going to Russia, so that's a thing. Vodka, as Andy pointed out. I do like that he asked about her age too. By the way, like he wanted to make sure she would be old enough to drink and everything. He wasn't gonna force her on any of that. He wanted to check in with her on that. It shows that soft side that's in there. It really goes to do wonders for his character, and I think that it's gonna make it so satisfying the more we see him and Fuko grow closer. So yeah, this was a great second episode. It really impressed me. It was funny. It was interesting. It was mysterious and entertaining. And above all, it got me thinking. It got me questioning what's going to go on next. And I mean, we kind of got our answer, but don't know exactly how it's going to go down, So, yeah. Tell me in the comments below, what did you think of this episode of Undead Unluck? And for now, I'm Connie, and I'm signing off. See y'all next time.